Welcome to the Next Level Podcast with Brian Daniels. Ooh, boom shakalaka!
Hi everyone, welcome to the Next Level Podcast. I'm Andrew, and I'm joined today by Josh.
Hello.
And Dan.
Hello.
So this episode is going to be basically fully Doctor Who themed. So I'm just going to say at the top of the episode that this is going to contain major spoilers for series or seasons 1 and 2 of
Super spoilers.
Yes, super spoilers. So this is your advance warning. Okay, so before just when we were discussing this episode, I was saying that originally the idea was that it would sort of be kind of a look back on season 2, but due to the events of how season 2 finished, I guess we're going to sort of turn it into more of a conversation of Ncuti's run as the 15th Doctor overall. So I think, right off the bat, of course, the major news, which I think came as a surprise to a lot of people, is the regeneration, which certainly caught me off guard, and I think Dan, what are your thoughts? Because we were both at the same cinema screening.
So I mean, going into the two-parter, there was always this kind of rumor. It's like with the BBC not being completely direct about, is Ncuti gonna stay with Doctor Who? Is Disney renewing for a new season after this one? Like, what is the future? And with the finale, there were some leaks, but nothing was ever really confirmed. People would make jokes about it, but for the most part, everyone was shocked about how it was going, like how the third act of the finale was kind of leading into this regeneration, whether it's been reshot or whether it's been just added sort of in a way of like, we didn't know this would be the end.
Me either. Because it's funny because Rachel is new to Doctor Who. She started watching with when David Tennant came back and those specials were on Disney Plus, and it piqued her interest. And then since then, she's been going back and, maybe like while she's doing the dishes, she'll pull it up on HBO Max and watch it on her phone or something, and just kind of watching episodes here and there. And it's great because I know when she gets to certain points. This last Friday, I was at work and she goes, "Oh my God, River is the pawn's daughter." I'm like, yes, okay, great. It's stuff like that. So we got to experience this in real time. And she was saying, like, I've been seeing a lot of stuff online. Is he going to regenerate? Is he done? I'm like, I don't know. Usually we know who the next Doctor is well in advance. And, I was like, don't worry, this isn't going to be that kind of thing. And sure enough, she looked at me and she's like, you were wrong.
Yeah.
You were wrong. And I was. But yeah, we both got to have that at the same time. We were both kind of shocked because we were both bawling because I have grown very fond of Ncuti Gatwa's run of Doctor Who. It was one of those ones where I was like, okay, well, it's not been great recently, so let's see what we got here. And it's good. It's really good. It's probably, I'm gonna have to say, in my top 5 Doctor Who's.
Wow.
Okay. Yeah.
So I think it just, I know that we've sort of been talking kind of in broad strokes about the finale and everything, but I feel like we should probably rewind it a little bit and kind of go back to where this run started. So of course, Ncuti's Doctor was introduced in a very unusual way. Through
a very shocking way,
through bi-generation. So in the last 60th special, of course, rather than there being a full regeneration, his Doctor sort of split out from David Tennant's Doctor, which We'll
The
see what
14th Doctor.
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
yes.
14th, yeah.
Not the 10th Doctor. Yeah.
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 Or the 50th Special Doctor.
Yeah.
Um, and this was, of course, these specials were when Russell T Davies, who ran the show up until David Tennant's original run ended. So it's all sort of 60th special plus Russell T Davies coming back after, of course, Chibnall's run with Jodie Whittaker.
I did not like very much.
Yeah. I think that's the kind of the general consensus. But so basically, it kind of came back in a big way. It felt very much like his run of the show, sort of very camp, over the top. So of course, it makes sense that By Generation would be something that he would introduce during his run. So kind of right off the bat, he was brought into the canon in a very interesting way. And then so then we had of course Ncuti is the first black. I guess you could probably say sexually fluid Doctor. Openly.
Well,
That's been in the show, or kind of a lot
openly,
more.
yeah.
Yeah, openly, yeah. And yeah, so then of course his first sort of debut, at like his own standalone episode, was of course the Christmas episode. I think it's called the Church on Ruby Road, which we don't need to get into too much detail about as such. But basically, it was one of those cases where it was introducing a new Doctor and a new companion, which I think was probably good. That it was just him and one other companion, because with Chibnall's run, for instance, I think from the very beginning it's like, well, here's 4 companions, and then one of them dies in the first episode, so now, but it's still very crowded.
It was too much going on.
Yeah. So they kind of took it back to basics with it. Well, maybe not basics, but it was the Doctor and a companion, which of course that sort of introduced Ruby as a kind of a longer term companion, because sometimes it will be that the Christmas specials they just have a one-off character, and then the main run will have a more long-standing character. But that was sort of the introduction to his companion, and of course sort of the mystery around her, which was kind of the main plot thread throughout the first season of his run. Why is she, what's her background? Why is she here? All that sort of stuff. And I think I remember the general consensus was that the first, I guess you could say, proper episode was Space Babies, and that did not go down well. People thought, this is a really bad episode to kind of, because this was sort of a bit like a reboot, or not a reboot, like kind of a fresh stepping in point for people who aren't familiar with the show. Like Josh, you said with Rachel, for instance. So the first episode that's sort of meant to be his Disney money, his BBC, this is Doctor Who, and it's just about a bunch of babies, and I think the enemy was made of bogies or something like that. I don't know.
Pretty much. Yep.
Yeah. Yes. Literally bodily fluids. And when I saw that, I said, "This is Disney. Disney. This is the one episode that they said, all right, hold my beer. I'm making a Doctor Who episode. Let's see how this goes." And not to be pointing fingers, but we tried to make Doctor Who previously in America, and it didn't work really then either.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't remember Peter Cushing as Doctor.
Oh,
Doctor. Yeah.
Yeah.
Even Peter Cushing couldn't save that shit.
Yeah. And then you have Paul McCann in the Fox movie.
Yeah. The Fox movie, yeah. I was trying to be nicer about that one because I kind of like that.
Again, I think, it's sort of aged. I guess it's got its followers, but So that was, So I guess general consensus with that is that it wasn't a very good start. But I think, if memory serves, I think they released the first 2 episodes at the same time.
Yes.
So the
2
other
or
one,
3.
yeah. So I think the next one. I'm not going to go through like every episode, blow by blow
Right.
or anything like that. But then we had the Devil's Chord, which I thought was good. I liked that one.
Absolutely.
That was the one with like the music, was it Maestro or whatever?
Yep.
Yeah.
With the music and the Beatles and everything, which was it was very sort of silly, over the top, but it also kind of had that undertone of it kind of had that whole sort of setting up the bigger thread with the whole pantheon
Yeah.
aspect, which of course was sort of one of the other big threads that they sort of were trying to push throughout. Episodes like with the giggle, with that melody, and then sort of having that again in the Devil's Court. But that one I felt was a better example of what the show had to offer.
Yeah, I like that. I get that because it was this new Disney, era where they had their say what was going on. But I really like the fact that they didn't just rely on the like, okay, we're just gonna do this, or okay, like, yes, I would like to see this particular version of the Doctor go off against the Daleks, but they
Yeah.
didn't. And in fact, there were other cooler, more unique things, and for that, I appreciate it for what it is.
Yeah,
Yeah, definitely.
I appreciate what they were trying to set up. I guess the thing is, I'm kind of looking at this in hindsight, because I think overall, unfortunately, I think the Pantheon storyline, I think it had more legs. Originally, it had more legs than it actually got.
Yeah, I agree.
It felt like, that if there wasn't this change in the Doctor, then it might have had a bit more of a satisfying conclusion. But I liked the idea that it was sort of trying to build up this sort of, kind of group, I guess you could say, of big bads who are of significant danger to the Doctor. But I think
and who knows? Maybe it is.
Maybe, yeah. I mean, I guess they can continue that, but it seems a bit weird that if it's introduced with one iteration of the Doctor and then it's sort of then picked up and then concluded with another one. I don't know, it feels a bit incomplete. It's like if the Time Lord Victorious thing just sort of started with Tennant but ended with Matt Smith. You could do it.
I mean, yeah,
but it just feels a bit sort of. I don't know.
I get you where it's open ended. I don't know, but that's kind of what I love about Doctor Who is that you can do that.
Yeah.
There is a lot of fuckery going on with the Master with the Fourth Doctor, where it was like, oh, I haven't happened for you yet, but I'm mad. That type of stuff. And that's kind of why I guess I really started liking a lot of the Fourth Doctor stories. It's like, okay, what's going on here? And I guess that's why it's another way that I'm always expecting things to come back. So, but I get what you're saying with as far as like what we had going for these 2 seasons, and it's just like, okay, where were you going with that?
Yeah.
It did feel kind of like womp womp.
Yeah, but I'm happy to have my my opinion changed on the matter. But as of right now, if we get, it feels like we might not get anything more. If that's the case, it's a shame. But I enjoyed the sort of the run that got us to that point.
Yeah.
But I think I think the other thing is, I guess, sort of, kind of the gaping problem, I guess you can say, with Run as a whole, and it's more indicative of TV shows in general. And I know Dan, you've heard this from me many a time. It's the way I've seen it recently is it's the shrinkflation of TV. So all we got in each of the 2 seasons is 8 episodes each. And just for context, when the show restarted in 2005,
that's right. Yeah,
that was 13 episodes a season. And then even as most recently, sort of with Peter Capaldi and Jodie Whittaker and everything, you still got, generally speaking, you got sort of 10 episode seasons, you double digits. But with these ones, with these Disney seasons, it's basically being 8 episodes per season. And it just means it feels like the overall narrative went by very quickly, or very rushed, I guess you could say. And I know that's a thing I've seen online, with a lot of these conversations around the episodes and the seasons. Is that it just feels like it's being a bit too ambitious, I guess you can say, or that it would benefit from just a couple of extra episodes each season.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I don't know. I feel like more shows aren't daring to be as bold anymore. They're trying to just like, okay, this is it. We don't want to bore people. Let's go. But I definitely agree. I feel like this easily could have been 2 10 episode seasons. If you will.
Yeah, no, I get you. Because the thing is that, just to put things in perspective, it's fairly typical for there to be what they call Doctor Light episodes in New Who. The most popular one, of course, is Blink. But basically, it's basically, as the name suggests, it's an episode where the focus is largely on a character who's not the Doctor. So it may be a companion, it may be a one-off character, that sort of thing. But the thing is that, so with this, with these seasons, of course, we did have a couple of Doctor Light episodes. But the problem is that means 1 episode out of 8, he wasn't there, which is a significant proportion.
And that felt weird.
Yeah. But the thing is that they were decent episodes. So the first one was 73 Yards, which is when, where I can't, like, the Doctor steps in this ferry circle or something, and then he's not there, and
no, it's Ruby that steps in the fairy circle.
Oh, okay. I
had to think too. Yeah.
And then if people got within 73 yards of her or something, they wanted nothing to do with her or something like that. So it was more sort of a psychological type episode. But I felt like the mood and the atmosphere and everything, it was a good episode. And then I'm probably butchering this, but I think like the lady that she was seeing was her as an old lady or something like that. So it was sort of that she lived through all these years in one version of the timeline or something like that. Again, apologies if I've got anything wrong. It's been a while since I've seen
there was definitely some sort of like reset the timeline type thing at the end.
Yeah. That episode honestly didn't stick with me very well. So I was like, okay, because it's like I was trying to think about that one. It's like, man, that episode was just like, I'm not saying it was a bad episode, but it was definitely a weak episode. It didn't stick with me at all, to be honest.
Fair enough. But the thing is that it retroactively became very crucial for the season 2 finale. And I guess that's sort of what because I know a lot of people also thought that the Dot and Bubble episode was also a bit. I don't know. I guess some people weren't a fan of that one. That's the one where they had these people. Basically, it was sort of like that weird Black Mirror technology type episode.
Oh yeah.
Where the Doctor saves them, and then the main character is basically she's racist. I guess it's
she's racist. Yes. Yeah.
And then it's like if you get into the TARDIS with me, I can save you all. And then she's like,
and they were like, no,
we'll just get on these boats or whatever, and we'll be fine. We don't need your help, and we don't know what the outcome is, but it's implied that it's probably not going to go very well for them.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Maybe that one hit harder to me because I'm dealing with a bunch, a different, people, a different society over here in America. But that one kind of hit pretty hard for me too. I remember now, especially when like because they had tried to tackle racism with Jodie Whittaker, and it honestly like made me stop watching for a hot minute. I was like,
with the spaces, yeah, the space
yeah.
races, yeah.
No, with the Rosa Parks episode, it's like
It's
the
the
third
same
Yeah,
episode.
that's the same one. Yeah, the
Oh.
guy that teleports through time, and he's basically that's why people call him a space racist, because he's a time traveler.
space racist.
Yeah.
Okay,
Not-
but that
yeah.
was
Yeah.
But that one, that one actually was like, oh damn, okay, that one actually felt something.
Yeah, because it was a bit more subtle, but it was just like some of the words that they used. So like calling the TARDIS like voodoo and stuff like that. Like, that doesn't sit well.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. But I think the thing is that despite that season being so short, and even if the episodes didn't quite always stick the landing, I can't fault Ncuti as the Doctor. I don't know where I would rank him, but he's definitely up there for me.
Absolutely.
Of course, there may be an element of recency bias with regards to it, but it just seems like not only was the Doctor a fun character, it felt like he had fun playing him. It seemed very kind of authentic.
Well, it felt like the Doctor was finally enjoying living again, as opposed to just.
And I guess that's sort of
carrying the weight of everything. Yeah.
Well, that's sort of what they were trying to go for, weren't they? Like, the 15th Doctor was sort of post rehab Doctor. That was sort of like the big thing they were going into this with. But it showed, it showed that it didn't mean that he was just sort of mellow. But it looks like, particularly. Sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say he has a way of acting with his eyes that really made you feel everything that he was,
aside from the crying. I mean, that was sort of it. I get it, but sometimes I was like, okay, there's another one for the cry counter.
Yeah, take a shot every time Ncuti cries. Yeah.
But then I think it's exemplified in episodes like Rogue, which was sort of the historical episode from season 1, where it's like the whole sort of Downton Abbey grand ball type.
That was Bridgerton.
Event. Bridgerton, yeah, sorry. But again, that sort of the character Rogue also became very sort of retroactively crucial, because not only was he sort of the romantic interest for the Doctor in the episode, but of course he was also crucial in kind of helping break, I wouldn't call it conditioning as such, but sort of breaking into the Doctor's mind a bit in Wish World, which was the penultimate episode of season 2. And the fun fact is, apparently, the actor who played Rogue, when he was shooting the scenes for Rogue for that episode, he was asked to basically step aside and record a separate scene talking about, how tables don't do that. So I guess that means that Russell T Davies kind of had this whole sort of story planned for season 2, even when they were shooting season 1. They didn't get him back, a year after they shot the season 1 scenes for him. They shot that episode, and then they also said, oh, by the way, could you also just, stand in front of a green screen and, just talk about the, tables.
That I like.
Yeah, so so that's the sort of thing, like, I appreciate the thought that went into it, even if, there's questions about the execution, the kind of the idea that it's sort of not just sort of pulled together at the 11th hour. Seems like there's sort of been some thought put into it.
Yeah, I feel like maybe the ending was kind of like a more recent decision,
Yeah. But, I think we can definitely get into that. Yeah. But the thing is that while, and then of course season 1 ended with a 2-parter, which was again kind of going into the pantheon, but and I guess Josh, this might be something that you're a bit more familiar with, but with the whole sort of Sutekh aspect. So that was sort of harkening back to
Yeah.
the fourth Doctor, if memory serves.
Yeah,
Um,
that was one that kind of surprised me too, that especially that I didn't see it. I was like, oh, okay, cool. I remember that guy kind of.
yeah. Okay, okay, but of course, that's so like the whole thing was sort of bring back Sutek, who apparently has been clinging on to the side of the TARDIS
The
for
whole
for
time.
generations. Yeah, and that was why he was getting into these situations or something like that. Again, it's been a year since I've seen it, so I definitely can't fault it for spectacle and everything, but I mean basically all I can really remember from that finale was that basically he dropped Sutek into the time vortex
Yeah, he raw
and
dog time stream.
what's that sorry?
He made him raw dog the time stream.
Yeah, yeah.
That's a bad joke, yeah.
Yeah. And that Ruby's mum was pointing at a sign or something, and it.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It felt like season one. It felt like it was more sort of. I know this is probably going to be a cop out thing to say, but sort of it felt like it was sort of the journey that I enjoyed rather than the destination.
Yeah. It was the friends we made along the way.
I liked seeing Yoo-Hoo on the screens, and I enjoyed the
Yeah.
episodes. Generally speaking, I enjoyed the episodes, as they were.
Yeah.
But I think Dan, you were kind of in a similar mindset to Josh when it came to things like 73 yards, if memory serves.
I mean, with 73 yards, it wasn't that it was a bad episode. I actually thought it was really good, but I also thought it was really kind of bleak. Like I was like, I can't believe that Ruby Sunday had to go through all of this and just
Yeah.
make it out on the other side. It showed her strength as a character, but it was like, wow, did we really have to see that? And fast forwarding to the end of season 2, we have another tragic set of scenes with Ruby, and it's just like, how much can this girl take?
Yeah. They kind of like gave her the old Peter Parker treatment.
Yeah,
Oh yeah.
You gotta have the
that's
worst time possible.
that's a whole other spoilers though.
Yeah, that movie's been out for a few years. Yeah. But yeah. So that was sort of season one in a nutshell, at least for me. But I realize there's been a lot of talk, like rambling and monologuing and everything from my end. So before we get into post season one, I didn't know if there was anything that either of you wanted to add to that.
Yeah, just season one. No, it was just I really liked the fact that you could tell that there was Disney money being thrown at this, and I'm not saying that BBC
Yeah.
never gave it a good budget, because I've enjoyed the fucking tin foil on paper
Oh yeah.
and strings episodes of Doctor Who as well.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
like I've watched the budget go up and down on this thing. So to see it with like an actual like 4K Disney HD budget was great. I think that's probably a lot of the reason why I really like Space Babies, was because it just looked good. I mean,
Fair enough.
yeah,
Yeah.
the boogie monster was stupid, but
Yeah.
it
And that's
looked
the thing, yeah. And the thing is that they sort of turned it into a cinema event over here. So last year, as
good.
well as this year, what they did is they showed on the day that the finale aired. What they would do is they would do a double bill. So they would show the penultimate episode
Okay.
that had already come out the week before, and then at the time that the new episode released, they would then show that like directly afterwards.
Correct.
So last year we saw the 2-part finale on a cinema, at an IMAX cinema over here in London, and it definitely really benefited from that. It didn't feel like it was watching. It didn't feel like it was just watching Doctor Who on a cinema screen. It felt like watching a cinematic event that just happened to be Doctor Who.
Yeah.
So
I
yeah,
get that. Yeah.
yeah. So the budget and everything, yeah, definitely was noticeable. Um, and I guess the other good thing about that season is that it's sort of. So I think it was in the. I'm trying to remember. I think it was in the 60th specials when they reintroduced Mel, who was the Sixth Doctor's companion,
Yeah.
and I believe the Seventh Doctor's companion for a little bit.
Mhm.
And then I think they got her back there, but then they didn't just like as a one-off. She appeared a couple of times throughout um,
Yeah.
season one as well. So it was good to see. Not only did you have the Doctor and Ruby, you had the supporting cast. They sort of made the unit characters a bit more. They gave them a bit more depth as well. It felt like.
Yeah.
So you got, of course, Kate, but then you also had some more of the kind of
Mhm.
supporting cast who may previously sort of have been unnamed. So you had Shirley, and you had Mel, and you had Rose, and people like that.
Oh,
So it's kind of good that he sort of built on those characters, and it wasn't just sort of like a just nostalgia bait. Although, well,
mhm.
in some cases you could say that, but yeah.
But I do think it's nice seeing that, like former companions, have work, have a steady job just because simply, well, they know what they're talking about and they have experience and things that other
Yeah, yeah,
people. Yeah. That's
yeah,
neat to me.
yeah, absolutely. So yeah, and then there was a Christmas special, which this was the. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Just I have to give an honorary mention as well in season one to Boom as an episode, because that was a really
Oh yeah,
strong
Stephen Moffat's
performance by
episode.
Judy Gower. Yeah, and it was the first time we saw the actress that plays Belinda in this season. She had
Yeah,
a cameo in the earlier season as well.
yeah, she did. I can't remember if they actually ever gave a conclusion to that. Anyway, but that was a good episode. That was also a Stephen Moffat written episode, I believe. So
Yeah, give credit where credit is
Moffat.
due.
yeah, but yeah. So then we had the Christmas special from last year, which was I think it's called Joy to the World, and again,
Yeah.
retroactively a really crucial episode, which is weird.
Yeah.
Just because, in generally speaking, a lot of the Christmas episodes of this show have sort of been standalone, or I wouldn't say
Mhm.
throwaway, but basically slice of life, I guess you could say. The only other one I
Yeah.
can think of was The Runaway Bride, which again, it was the first introduction of Donna.
Yeah.
But apart from that, I can't think of any other Christmas specials where it had a significant impact on the overall storyline. Because normally it's kind of meant to be like, oh, here's a Christmas Carol, but in a Doctor Who perspective. Here's the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, but in a Doctor's perspective. But this one's like, no,
Um, there was the one with Clara. Um,
we don't talk about
We'll talk about Clara.
and I'm pretty sure Nick Frost was Santa Claus, and the whole thing was they were
Oh,
trying to get her
the
to.
alien one, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that one. I don't know. That one was a Christmas special, yet just like a regular episode to me.
Fair enough, but I
Yeah.
guess it's sort of in terms of. And I get what you mean. I'm not saying like every episode is just a Christmas story for
Right.
Doctor Whoify, but in the sense of you can watch the episode without having sort of a major understanding of the show and enjoy it. And if you don't watch the episode, you're not missing out too much on the overall Doctor Who lore. But
Yeah.
with this one, they kind of took a different route because this was the whole sort of the concept of the time hotel.
Yeah.
Where you could go to any place in space or time. In this centralized hotel where different doors bring you to these different
And the touristy thing.
areas. Yeah, and for me, I didn't. I thought it was okay, but it felt like I wasn't huge on the companion for that episode, which was Joy.
Yeah.
again, Shooty put in a good performance and everything, but it just felt like some of, I guess, her background and some of the story felt a bit heavy-handed because she
Mhm.
kind of one of the main points for her was that she was visiting her mother while she was in the hospital because of COVID, which I get
Yeah.
that, but it feels like this aired in 2024, and of course COVID is still very much a thing. I'm not I'm
Mhm.
not saying anything to the contrary, but it felt like in 2024 it felt a bit kind of dated, I guess you could say, all things considered. At least to me, it felt like it was meant to be like this kind of emotional beat, which just didn't do much for me, really.
Yeah. No, I feel that. It would be like having, like the Doctor goes to 9/11, in like 2008, it's like,
Yeah,
why are we telling the story type of thing?
yeah, exactly. And I think the thing is for me is I was more interested in the story with the Doctor and Anita, who's like the hotel
Absolutely.
manager, than the Doctor
Yeah.
and Joy.
Oh my God. Yeah, no, that's the best B plot of the whole series, to be honest.
Yeah, and then of course it ended in a very sort of Christmassy way, where Joy ended up becoming the star of Bethlehem or something like
Yeah, they made Jesus canon. Uh,
that.
Well, yeah, it's hard to explain exactly how that makes sense and how that shouldn't make
doesn't make
sense at the
sense.
same
Yep,
time.
exactly. But
but then of course we got into season two, which
yeah,
is of course this is the one that's ended most recently, and I'm just going to say for me it was markedly better than season one as a whole.
yes.
I think it started off much strong. Basically, the thing is that because there was only two seasons with Shooty, well, so
Hmm.
far you never know. Um, it felt like because there were 8 episodes in season one and 8 episodes in season two, it felt like I was having to kind of do a this versus that. So in this case, it was Space Babies versus Robot Revolution, I think it was called, where it's like so it's the introduction of Belinda as the
Oh yeah.
companion through season two, and that there was a planet named after her because some guy who had a crush on her bought one of those certificates where it's like, oh, I bought a star and named it after you, and it turns out the star's a planet. It
Yeah.
was it was much better for me than Space Babies, but it was there was some interest. I think it also had the line about like planets of the incels or something like that, which just felt a bit
Yeah.
weird to hear from a Doctor Who episode. And considering that it basically ends up with the guy canonically becoming a sperm and egg and then getting hoovered up by a robot. Again, very kind of a difficult sell if somebody tries to jump in at that point, because that
Yeah.
is very, very silly.
That is, yeah.
But that is what happened. But I felt like it was a good introduction of a companion, and it was also kind of good that rather than it being sort of the companion about being, oh well, let's continue this. She was very much right from the get go, sort of take me home. That's what she wanted. Yeah. It wasn't like other companions where they sort of the Doctor's like, oh yeah, come along, or other ones where like with Martha, which is like, oh come on, take me on another trip, please. This was very much sort of in the realm of who was it? Is it Nissa from the Fifth Doctor, or is it Tegan? It's it's the Australian companion who's basically during Peter Davison's run, like take me home, like I get me back to Heathrow,
Yeah.
or something like
That's
that.
the,
But yeah, no, so it's
yeah.
good to kind of see that different dynamic.
Yeah. Instead of, let's go on an adventure. It's like, no, this is crazy. I'm done with this. I'm ready to go home. Home is where my warm clothes are. I'm
Mhm.
out.
But of course, the reason why she wanted to go home takes a completely different meaning when we get to the finale. Um,
Yeah.
but again, I think another standout for me in this season has got to be Lux, the cinema
Yes,
episode.
absolutely.
Mhm.
Because this was with Mr. Ringading, the animated cartoon character at the cinema that became evil
Yeah.
because of Moonlight. Again, I'm giving these very sort of. I'm making it sound like, how can I make Doctor Who sound as weird or as kind of campy as possible?
No, it was a real cartoon. Yeah.
um, I feel like kind of for me the disappointment with that episode is I knew that I knew there was like an animated segment. I thought it'd be a bit longer. Not I'm not saying like the whole episode should have been animated or something, but it felt like
Right.
it was a selling point, and then it was maybe there for maybe a minute or so.
Okay. I didn't.
But
I guess I didn't see the same sort of like advertising package on my end because
fair enough.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I get what you're saying. It's kind of like do you ever see the Doom movie? Like Doom the video game?
I can't say I've seen the movie now.
The whole movie was promoted as being a like first person gore fest.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
This is maybe the last like 3 minutes of the movie.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Yep.
exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. Awful.
But still, I would say that the episode as a whole still stood on its own 2 feet. Again, it was sort of another mention of the Pantheon,
Yeah.
another reference to the giggle and everything, because you
Mhm.
don't make him laugh and everything.
Yeah.
But it's sort of the concept of him becoming, as he becomes more and more powerful, he becomes more and more not lifelike, but kind of more and more detailed. So he sort of starts as like a 2D sort of 1930s style character, something like you would see in Cuphead or something like that.
Yeah.
But then, of course, as he becomes more powerful, he sort of becomes like 3D CGI and everything. So they definitely had a lot of fun with the visuals, but the story
Mhm.
didn't take a back seat for me because of that. It had a good plot and very good visuals as well. So
Oh yeah.
overall, I found it a very enjoyable episode.
It also had a crazy fourth wall.
Oh, of course.
Break.
How could I forget that?
That was nuts too. Yeah.
Yeah, I completely forgot. Yeah, where it's basically they go through they go into the living room of fans of Doctor who then proceed to
Right.
all say their favorite episode is Blink.
Yeah.
um,
Which was great.
but it was more than just kind of a full, because they added a bit of it wasn't just sort of like oh, look at us, we're just referencing the show, but they also kind of made them flesh out characters in the sense of they had to accept their fate, that they were just they themselves were just part of a TV show, and that they would get removed from existence when the Doctor left.
Mhm.
So it was more than just sort of a throwaway gag. It was, they added a lot of depth to it as well.
Yeah. No, it was definitely a fun way to acknowledge like, okay, let's throw one out to the fans real quick. And instead of just like how a lot of shows kind of just like, I don't know, have you ever seen the Robot Chicken Nerd?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
This is unacceptable. I do not
Yeah.
like this. And it's like that's their own depiction of their own fans. Whereas
Yeah.
this episode was like, hey, we know you. We like you.
Yeah.
It was
And the
fun.
Doctor took it in pretty good stride, all things considered.
Yeah.
But they sort of dabbled with that before with the Seventh Doctor, I believe, where it's they turn off the TV just before it's going to say that, oh, coming up next here's Doctor Who or something like that.
Yeah.
But no, it's definitely, and then at the end where they also said, oh well, we give the episode when they rate the episode out of 10, based on what they thought, which again was sort of trippy to watch. It's like what's going
Yeah.
on?
Yeah.
Um,
It was fun.
yeah, no, that's sort of like I know we've said that quite a lot in this episode. Episode that we're recording is that it's just fun. It does. Until we get to Well. The Well was fun, but
No.
scary.
Very scary.
Because the thing is that nobody. Well, as far there were leaks and everything, but if you avoided the leaks, like I did, I had no idea that this was basically a sequel to Midnight, which is one of the kind of that's one of the highly rated episodes for fans from the original Russell T Davies era, because this was, of course, that was the episode where the monster doesn't really get defeated. You don't know who the monster is. The only reason it stops is because the lady she sacrifices herself. That doesn't, it wasn't, it wasn't a cheerful ending. It wasn't the Doctor wins. It was just sort of he doesn't know what's going on. And of course, in that episode, it was sort of that it was repeating what people were saying, and then it was getting to a point where it was saying things before the other people said it. Whereas in this episode, you had no idea really until they sort of said that, oh, this planet used to be called Midnight. Because the way that the monster worked in this episode was different from how it was. So it wasn't just a case of, oh, well, people are speaking, they're copying what I'm saying like instantly after I'm saying it. In this case, it was, if you step behind this individual woman, that's it. It lights out for you. So, and again, it's sort of, it didn't do that thing where it feels like, because the thing is that with, movies and that sort of thing, like when there's a sequel, it feels like they feel like they need to kind of give a bit more explanation behind it. They need to kind of say, well, this is what it looks like. This is how it works and everything. They didn't do that with this one.
No.
We still, you got the briefest of glimpses, but even then, even if you, if you paused it, you still wouldn't really be able to understand what it is, or how it works. And again, the ending implies is that it hasn't been defeated. It's still there. So again, a very bleak episode, but but a really good sequel episode that I was not expecting.
Out of nowhere, and it was good, and it really was like a decent highlight of a great season as well.
I don't know what are your thoughts on that, Dan?
No, yeah, I thought it was a really great episode as well. I mean, some of the script was a little bit heavy-handed with like the sign language and the nurses and everything. But overall, I mean, that having an antagonist that we've experienced before in some capacity, but still have no idea. It was familiar, but it was fresh. It was a really good episode.
I think I just need to add in that. So I think you were saying it's not so much the use of sign language that was heavy-handed, but I think it was the comment about where they said, well, every nurse should know sign language or something to that extent. And this was said to Belinda, who had appeared in that planet in that time frame, as an outsider. So the fact that she didn't know that, catching them off guard, I think that was the thing that you found a bit.
It was.
But having the technology where when they spoke, it also wrote out what they were saying, so that she could also read. I think that was cool. That
was really cool. Yeah.
And then I think we also had a what's it called? Lucky Day, which again sort of like 73 Yards. This was the Dr. Light episode for the season, and also really crucial. And again,
Yeah.
I thought it was a really good story. I really liked it. I mean, I'm not a fan of Conrad, but that's sort of how they wrote him to be. But you know, this sort of kind of pretense that you know that they believe in aliens taking over and everything, and that they're trying to stage this. How's it? They were trying to. They were pretending they believed in
It
what
was a
unit.
hoax.
Yeah, they act. Yeah, they were pretending that they believed in what unit did, and that unit had a
Yeah.
purpose and everything. And then they basically did this elaborate hoax. So it's like, oh no, we think they're not doing anything. It's nonsense and everything. I really hoped his arm would get torn off by the actual monster.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
also the return of Ruby Sunday.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
What I
but
was
yeah,
excited for.
yeah, but then you had Conrad, who was basically, I mean, for lack of a better term, well, the name itself sort of gave it away. He was a con man who was very
Yeah.
radical, sort of alt-right, for lack of a better term, grifter. Which, even though the episode itself was Dr. Light, I think it probably had one of the most, like, kind of one of the Doctor speeches that stuck out most for me in the entire run. Which was when he was talking to him about, when
at the
when he
end.
visits him, when he visits him in his, when he takes him into the TARDIS, and he basically says, Conrad, you're basically, a speck of nothing in the grand scheme of things. You're gonna die at 49, forgotten, alone, all that sort of stuff. And then, of course, vice versa, where Conrad just says, like, I don't accept your reality.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
was just sort of, it kind of summarizes it in a sentence. He's basically saying, I don't accept. You're telling me what's going to happen. You know what's going to happen, but I don't accept that. It's like, well, it's not really for you to do that. But for me, I just thought that was a really good kind of scene of the Doctor being scary but not threatening. Like, you would not want to hear that from him.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not. It wasn't him trying to be dark and evil. It was him like, you've pissed me off, type
If
of
you don't
thing.
want to do that.
No. Yeah,
So,
no,
yeah.
it was good. I don't know. That episode really came out of nowhere and caught me too, because usually I kind of have a sense of what's going on in an episode of Doctor Who, and that one was just like, oh, not only is it not a monster, it's these guys who are trying to, like, I don't know, bamboozle the guy. I don't know, something about it felt like it was a very I'm trying to think of the right word to tread lightly, but like a parody of a certain aspect of American politics, if you will. A certain branch of people, and that's who Conrad and his people are. They definitely have their own radio show where they're talking about it and pumping up the propaganda as well.
Yeah, where they set up hoaxes and then point the finger and say, "Look, here's the truth," even though they know it's
yes,
put on. Yeah,
but with the followed twist, there was an actual that monster out there. So there was immediately jokes on you, idiot. So I like that.
Yeah,
That's what I felt about that episode.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, Dan, what did you think from your perspective?
I mean, with Lucky Day, it was interesting that we would go back to like Ruby Sunday and the introduction of Conrad and everything. But I mean, the concept of just everyone turning on Unit because of essentially like a podcast or like this propaganda, it's baffling, because do you know how many times the Doctor and Unit have saved the world, have saved your city.
Yes,
It's like
and
this is
people
this is
know
not a
that.
hoax. You have seen spaceships in the sky. Well, maybe not Donna, but
Yeah, but
You know,
it's
you know the sort of hoops these people jump through, though, don't you? So
yeah. But yeah, I mean, I loved the doctor's speech, and it just felt like the perfect example of like, you threaten Ruby, you threaten Kate, you threaten the safety of all of humanity. I'm not going to punish you, but know this: you are not going to make it out of this easy.
and then yeah,
Yeah, we'll get to that because I mean,
yeah,
a lot of what happens in that episode eventually carries on.
into the finale. Yeah.
Yep.
So then we sort of had an episode which it fell a bit flat for me personally, but I can understand why people like it, and it's the uh, with the barbers, the story
The
in the
story and
engine.
the engine, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which I appreciate. You know, I can understand. That for some people it would tick the box, but there's this for an episode because there were points where they showed. That when they told the story, it would project on this wall. But then for an episode that was
Mhm.
so heavily focused on stories, they didn't really use the sort of the visual aspect that much.
Yeah.
Which I get will probably be expensive to animate and everything, but at the same time, it's sort of a case of, well, why would you introduce that as an element and then only use it for a few minutes?
Mhm. No, that whole episode, it was weird. It was like they set up for like a bottle episode, and then while they did have a bottle episode, it wasn't like they were doing flashbacks or everything, so it really wasn't a bottle episode. I don't know. That
Yeah,
one, you're right. It's hard to categorize and define is where that fits.
yeah. Oh, and then you also have Poppy pop up randomly.
God.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, which again, that's very confusing. Um, so yeah, it was. Yeah, I mean, for me, that was probably the weakest one of the season for me.
Yeah, I'd agree.
By a margin, but I can understand the people might enjoy sort of the the kind of the fact that the story powers the engine. Um, uh, but then I feel like we were really treated. I think we were rewarded with the next one. So the Interstellar Space, the Interstellar Song Contest, which I mentioned it in my mini review, which I believe will be up on should be up on the YouTube channel. Um,
Mhm.
so of course, I don't know how big a thing it is over in America, but it is very much a parody of Eurovision, which is this yearly song contest where these acts from various European countries, go ahead and they make these songs, they perform them, and and then and then there's winners and everything. It's mainly just meant as a bit of fun, really. It's so, but to kind of
I
have
was actually relying on this moment for you to explain to me what that was. So I appreciate
okay,
that.
okay.
Yeah. 'Cause
So
I
it's
wasn't
just
sure.
well, that's basically what it is. It's just
Mhm.
imagine something like American Idol, but just with
Bigger.
once but with different countries. There'll be one song that's performed by England. There'll be a song that's performed by Sweden, for instance. There'll be a song that's and then it's just a case of okay,
Okay.
well, at the end of the songs, there's votes, and then who's going to win. And funnily enough, not only did that episode air on the same day that Eurovision aired, but Shruti Gatwa was also originally planned to be the announcer, the English announcer for the votes.
That's funny.
But he pulled out at the last minute.
Oh,
But there's just a bit of fun side trivia. But kind of the episode itself, it sounds gimmicky, right? Because it's like, oh
yeah.
well, what's happening in this one? Oh, they're going to a song contest. Is there any reason? No, but
Bit of fun.
yeah. But then,
Yeah.
of course, well, this is of course the episode which, if things went wrong, it basically would have the highest death count in Doctor Who by a significant margin. I think it was something
Oh my god.
like 3 trillion people potentially would have died.
Yeah.
If because this was, of course, everyone was basically, apart from a few, they were sucked out of the stadium by these.
Eris.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. That's how I saw it. As someone
Yeah,
who
yeah,
used
no,
to,
fair
like,
enough. Yeah.
No, that's a fair
Yeah.
assessment.
Because their planet was used to make honey or something like that.
The
Again,
resources, yeah.
but the way they were trying to, and this company that made the honey was sponsoring this event, so they decided to
Yeah.
take it out on this event. But I think there's a few kind of significant things in that episode. So one, the Doctor was out of it for the most part. So the Doctor was one of the people that was sucked out of the stadium.
Yeah,
So-
very surprising.
Yeah, so it's very much sort of Belinda plus some ragtag sort of one-off characters, and I don't mean that in a dismissive way or anything like that, but because it was a very strong cast in that episode. But it was interesting to kind of see, it's always interesting to see episodes where it's like, how will the companion deal with this without the Doctor being there as well?
Yeah.
And of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that we had the first. It completely caught me off guard. We got the visions of Susan
Yeah.
so Susan.
First of all, why?
So Susan was she was the very first companion. She is canonically the Doctor's granddaughter.
Yes.
And I think the last time she appeared on the screen, I think, was in like a Children in Need special called Dimensions in Time, which was in
Yep.
which was in 1993. So it's been a good 30 plus years, and then it's the same actress and everything. It wasn't, they didn't recast her or anything, and it was,
Oh yeah, good.
and she sort of brought him back from the brink. And then he subsequently managed to get back into the stadium by using a confetti cannon, which is very 15th Doctorish.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's one of those things where they keep. A lot of people thought that the big twist with Mrs. Flood is that's who that would be.
Mm. Oh, we'll get on to that. Don't worry. Yeah.
Yeah, and we'll get onto that. Yeah. But so when she showed up there, it was kind of like a why now? And now that that's not who that was.
Yeah.
I'm kind of like I'm still left with the what's up with that?
Yeah, no, I agree. But
I have
for
some
me,
theories, but we'll get to that.
Yeah, but in sort of the nostalgia / sort of Doctor Who history side of my brain lit up when that's like, oh wow, I don't care why she's there, but she's there, and that's cool.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think the other thing is that the episode also kind of had the Doctor kind of. I was saying to Dan when I was watching the episode, it felt like kind of vibes of Time Lord Victorious, when he was basically just electrocuting. I think his name was Kid or something like that.
Yep.
He was just electrocuting him again and again and again. And he's like, I'm going to do this, tens of thousands of times or whatever.
Yeah.
And he had no remorse doing it.
Yeah.
And so
It was
it's kind
vengeance.
and seeing the Doctor like that is kind of, again, you don't want to see that side of him.
Especially from like the Doctor of Love.
Yeah.
Not to put a title on him like that, but that's what his whole point was.
Yeah. And considering, when all is said and done, he is not a human. So even though, he looks like one, the way that he acts, you don't know. whether that's normal, whether that's part of the
Right.
course, or how he's going to react if you say to him, hang on a minute, stop doing this, you're going too far. I think that episode again had everything. It had a very kind of silly premise to begin with, or it sounds like it has a silly premise, but it's actually probably one of the most significant episodes of his entire run.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that's also where we had the yes. Okay, so I think we're getting sort of towards the end of his run now, right? So I think the other thing to bring up is Mrs. Flood.
Yes.
So all throughout the 2 seasons, you had these sort of scenes where there was this character called Mrs. Flood, who was originally the neighbor of Ruby and then somehow the neighbor of Belinda.
Yep.
Where it seemed like I think she was in every episode in season 2. She was in most,
Absolutely.
if not all of them, for season 1. But basically, she was the character who would break the fourth wall. She would say things to the audience like, "Oh, what? You've never seen a TARDIS before?" and stuff like that. And
yeah.
So people were thinking originally that, maybe this will be dealt with at the end of season 1. And it wasn't. If anything, I think season 1 ended with basically saying, "Oh yeah, things are going to get way worse for the Doctor."
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, what's going on here? But then, in season 2, she kept appearing in these different, in all of the stories, she appeared in some capacity. And then, yeah.
Even if just for a second, yeah.
What was that, sorry?
Even if it was just for a second, she showed up.
Yeah. So I think in one of the episodes that she's just walking past in the hospital that Belinda's working at, or something like that. So it's just very sort of blink and you miss it type thing.
Yeah.
But then, of course, at the end of the Interstellar Song Contest, this is when she bigenerates, because she is also a Time Lord, but she's not the Master. She's not Missy. She's the Rani.
Yeah.
And so the Rani is is a Time Lady.
Time Lady, yeah.
Who was introduced, again, she in Classic Who, during Colin Baker's run, I believe, was when she was first introduced.
I won't call him the Lesser Baker.
Yeah. Basically, she's, I think, kind of the thing that kind of differentiates her is that she's sort of a Time Lord scientist, whereas sort of the Master is just sort of pure chaos, I guess you could say. The Rani is a bit more sort of scientific, and I guess she seems a lot more sort of she had a plan in place, whereas sort of the Master is sort of
calculated.
We'll see. Yeah, she felt more calculated, whereas the Master's like, well, let's just do this for the fun of it and see what problems it causes. Whereas with her, it's more of a case of, okay, well, here's the plan. This is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to do it. And then it leads into, so that reveal, again, caught a lot of people off guard. It was also sort of a running joke that sort of, Mrs. Flood, she's going to be Susan. She's going to be the Master. She's going to be the next Doctor. And she's going to be the Rani. So actually, you're right about that last one. But basically, baddie Time Lord, you can say. Villain Time Lord. And then, so that sort of leads into the whole 2-part finale, which also brings together so many plot points. So it makes 73 Yards important. It makes Lucky Day important. It makes Space Babies important.
Yeah.
It makes so of course it kind of starts. So the first episode is by and large sort of. It reminded me of was it the family Human Nature Family of Blood 2-parter with David Tennant.
Yes.
If you remember, where he basically puts his Time Lord consciousness to one side. So basically, he thinks that he is a human. like a
Yes.
regular run-of-the-mill, clock in, clock out type thing. Because the thing is that they're in this alternate world, but they don't realize it. That's basically being run by Conrad, who's telling the story, and is being powered by a baby that can grant wishes.
Well, Rachel called that out too. She goes, "He's got a pocket watch or a locket somewhere, right? It's definitely like that, right?" And I'm like, I don't know. I'm watching this for the first time too.
Yeah. But so it kind of had this whole thing where like pretty much everybody was tricked by what was going, even the Doctor.
Yeah, everybody.
And it was sort of. And the thing is that it's sort of being powered by Conrad. So, like we were saying earlier, he's very much in a very particular conservative, ultra conservative mindset. You can say so. And the thing is that if you kind of the big thing is that people would be arrested for doubting. Like that was the big thing, right? That if they doubted something, cups would fall through tables and they would break, and they would call it a slip. They wouldn't call it because like a slip in doubt. They wouldn't call it. They wouldn't say it's anything else. It seems like they were kind of scared to say it was anything but that. But then, sorry, go ahead.
Yes, a slip.
Yep, it's a slip. And the bit that I also noticed in my second watch through the bins outside, all of the bins said slip on the front of them.
Yep.
So even there, so it's like it's not rubbish. It's just a slip.
I didn't see that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the second time round, it was on a cinema screen. So for me, it was.
I noticed that too.
Yeah. But then there's these sorts of cracks. There's these people that don't quite believe, and it's because they don't fall under his radar. And one of those people is Ruby. Who sort of meets the Doctor at the beginning and says, "Are you the Doctor? I'm this person." And so it's sort of Conrad's version of people that he doesn't deem as important. He doesn't focus on. So they're sort of a ragtag group of people who he doesn't care about. Who just happen to be a lot of the people that we've come to know through Ncuti's run, sort of acting as a way to kind of break through this wish world and kind of show what actually is going on. And all the while, this is being orchestrated by Varani, because she wants to basically unleash chaos by bringing in Omega, who is... Again, that's a really far callback to the Three Doctors. So that's 1973, where it's like the OG Time Lord, the Time Lord that created Time Lords. Mm-hmm. And so the only way that she could bring him through is by having the Doctor immersed in this world so much, and then have it taken away from him, that his doubt will just destroy everything. That was sort of building him up to think that he's a human, and then systematically making him realize that no, he's not a human, he's a Time Lord, this is everything that's going on. And then it sort of leads to this climax where he's on this balcony, he can't get back in, he remembers who he is, and then it gets blown up and he's falling to his death.
Yeah. And then cue the music,
Yes. And then it just said the to be continued, because they didn't have any preview for what was going to be in the next episode or anything like that.
Yeah.
So it's sort of, you have to wait and see. So I enjoy kind of the concept of sort of the Doctor not realizing he's the Doctor at first, then sort of throughout the episode, things are just off. And then, him coming to realize what it is that's happening.
And I immediately, I was like, yo, that's the baby from Space Babies. And that was definitely her on that other episode. Something's going on. And Rachel's like, you need to come off of that.
Yeah. We'll get to that, because I'm still... The thing is, I know this is going to sound too much. but I'm still processing. Yeah, what happened with the finale?
Oh yeah.
Because
Yeah.
it's one of those things where, as a whole, I enjoyed it. But there are the more I think about it, there's more and more things, and the more I read about it, there's more things going. What about this? And I think there's going to be
Yeah,
some
and
aspects where, yeah. So, of course, how does it all come together? So we go into the finale, and the Doctor gets saved because of Anita, the manager of the space hotel, who opens the
Yes.
door, and he manages to get into the hotel just before he falls into the abyss, which it was at the time it was fun to see. It felt a bit Deus Ex Machina to me though. In
Yeah.
hindsight, it was like, well, the Doctor's not going to die. I mean, that's the thing, right? So no matter what, that's not going to happen. The worst that's going to happen is that he's going to regenerate.
Yeah.
We'll get onto that. But yeah, sort of the whole thing about here comes a character that you just thought was relevant for the Christmas special and then never again. She's here to save the day.
In the finale.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was fun
good.
to see.
I liked it.
Yeah. It was fun. Except it felt like they then kind of relegated her to the point of, okay, I've saved your life, Doctor, now what do you need me to do? I'll just hold open the door for the next 30 minutes of the episode or so.
Yeah.
Always come help. No,
over
just
here.
stand up, keep the door open.
To be fair, she did get a job offer from Unit, so
True.
Yeah.
But that was after holding open the door. But there was the reason that she was doing that was, so that basically the proper universe, like the waves of the proper universe, could come through. So Unit, who in the previous episode were an insurance company, and they thought they were an insurance company, and it felt very it kind of gave me Fallout type vibes, that sort of Americana suburbia,
Yeah.
bright colors, curvy TVs and everything, but it felt very much like that for me. So you had, and then of course, Unit realized was actually we're meant to be stopping threats like this from happening. So it was good to see, characters that, and for Kate to say something like, "Am I wearing tweed or something like that?" So kind of realizing
that was a good scene.
Yeah. So yeah, no, it was definitely good to kind of see them realize. Although it felt like, because the other thing that happened at the beginning of the episode is that it was sort of the clock struck midnight going into the day that that May the 24th. That was like the big day when bad stuff was going to happen. And the bad thing is that it just resets. But the thing is, it just feels like they introduced that concept and then they didn't really do much with it. So it's like, the day resets and then they get it, and they manage to solve the problem on the second go around, basically. So it's just like, okay. I don't know. It feels like if like the mystery spot episode of Supernatural was just resolved in one cycle. Whereas like they introduced this concept, which was cool, and then they just sort of
Yeah.
It's like, they didn't utilize it really that much. It felt like,
but it could have just be setting up, for something that'll be reverberated.
I don't
Later
know
on.
if it was directly stated that it was only like the second go around, but at the same time, they didn't directly like keep track of like how many resets have gone by. They were just saying like every time it resets, the veil becomes weaker and weaker until it falls into the underverse or something.
but yeah. Sorry, go ahead. Okay. No problem. So I think that, unfortunately, but this is the thing. Like, it felt like even though the finale was longer than a regular episode is, I was very kind of surprised with how it was structured, because kind of the first major plot was oh well, let's go ahead and let's get Omega out of the vault.
Yeah.
And then they do that, and then it's just a giant CGI creature who then proceeds to, basically proceeds to eat one of the Rani and then get shot back into its vault by the Doctor with a laser beam that doesn't kill it, but it's got the power of a billion supernovas or something like that. Or 10.
Yeah.
And then the door closes. Like, okay, so that's done.
Like, all right, then wrap yourself up.
Yeah, even though Omega in his original appearance, was, for lack of a better term, human looking for the, or looked like a Time Lord. So the fact they kind of went this big supernatural CGI creature thing was a bit
Zombie
weird.
thing, yeah.
Yeah. And then the thing is that got rid of one of the Rani, and the other one just sort of teleported away, and then that's just that plot point's not brought up again for the rest of the episode.
Yep. She's just fucked right off.
Yeah. Let's hope that's not to a dead end. Of course,
right.
like you said earlier, Josh, I was hoping for Susan to make an appearance in the finale. Nope.
Mm-hmm.
Nope, not there. And then you had sort of the second plot, which was Poppy. And this is where, this is where I'm very confused, and frankly, I started to get lost in terms of what they were trying to do with that. Because Space Babies never stood out to me as, this is a crucial plot-centric episode. Apart from, kind of showing the ropes to Ruby about this is what the TARDIS can do.
Yeah. He was just so happy there were space babies. And honestly, that's when I started realizing, like, this is a different Doctor for sure.
Absolutely,
and I think that was the moment that I started liking this guy. And I was sitting there going, "Space baby," and Rachel was like, "Stop it!" And I'm like, "No, it's great." And it's the fact that ended up being, that same space baby. It's like the twist just kept unfolding.
Yeah. I'm not going to spend too much time on that because, like I said, it gets very confusing at that point, because then you're kind of talking about diverging realities and that sort of thing, where everyone remembers everything. So the Doctor and Unit remember who they are in this universe, apart from Poppy, who they thought was their daughter. That she wasn't. Then they forgot about her, and then she disappeared and everything. So what does the Doctor decide to do? He decides to go, okay, let me go ahead and basically, this is how I interpret it. I could be wildly off the mark, but it's basically, okay, let me go ahead and fix things so that everybody has the same memories as to what's happened, apart from me. So I'm not going to remember who this individual was. I'm not going to remember who Poppy was. I'm not going to remember, her origin or anything like that. But as long as everyone else does, I'm okay with that. Which it does seem like a very selfless thing for the Doctor to do. So it does seem in character.
Yeah.
In that sense. But for me, it just felt like, considering what he had to do to get to that, it felt like a very big sacrifice for a character that I think we as an audience generally was sort of like, why is he doing it for this character specifically?
Yes.
Yeah. Why?
Yeah. But I will say that there were some aspects, like I only just recently found out, and maybe this is me being stupid, that when, after the events and they're in the TARDIS, so him, Belinda, and Ruby are in the TARDIS with Poppy, that him and Belinda are talking to each other, and they're folding up her coat, and they're just passing it back and forth, and they just keep on folding it, like, so many times that it just becomes, and then just disappears. And the moment it disappears, Poppy disappears from existence. And Ruby's like, oh, hang on a minute. And she was obviously really upset about that. He was like,
Oh my god.
yeah, what
As
is
soon
this?
as they started folding back and forth, it was like the quiet conversation between Rachel and I got real quiet, and she started catching on to what was going on.
Yeah,
And then, like, as soon as the blanket was gone, I looked over at her, and the tears started. The crying had started,
Oh,
and
yeah,
they did not end until the end of the episode.
yeah,
Um, so this is that point.
yeah. But of course, yeah. So of course, so the doctor goes that even though he's, from what I can tell, he's not entirely sure what's going on. He goes ahead and is like, okay, I
Yeah,
can fix this.
yeah,
Which, of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that he got to see the 13th Doctor, and I
yes.
right.
I was not expecting that when I saw that at the cinema. I was like, oh my god! I was thinking like they got the 13th Doctor back, and the thing is that I was really happy to see her, which
Yeah,
considering say what you will about Chibnall's era, I don't think the problem was
mhm.
ever Jodie as the Doctor.
No,
So it was really
it was not.
surprising in a good way to see her.
I'm
And
really
they even
surprised the audience didn't respond more to that.
but the thing is
Yeah,
that it was also good that they kind of poked fun, saying normally it's the other guy, of course, making a reference um, uh,
David
to
Tennant.
David
David
Tennant again.
Tennant, be it, yeah. So the fact is like, oh well, it's not him, and the fact that they sort of retroactively kind of made the whole Doctor and Yaz relationship um, like in both directions, it sort of kind of made the whole Doctor Yaz ship complete,
Yeah,
I guess you could say. Even though she doesn't, she says that she doesn't
you
get
never
to,
do.
he
Yeah,
doesn't get to, yeah, you never say that. But it just felt like it was nice to see Jodie again with what I thought was decent writing from a different showrunner, but it still felt like she was herself.
yeah,
Yep, yep.
But then, of course, this leads to because I was sort of into that because after he meets her and everything and he sorts things out, he goes and sees Belinda, who's like, and now we're sort of in a universe where it's like Belinda's like,
yeah.
okay, Poppy's my, and the dog's like, and this is where it's like the dog's like, well, oh, and who's the father and everything, and then that's when they show these alternate cuts or clips of the previous episodes where she's talking about I need to get back home, and the reason that she needs to get back home by 7:30 or whatever is because she needs to basically her mum's going to a concert or to perform at a concert, so she needs to be there to pick up her daughter.
Her daughter. Yeah,
And so basically, there's all these things where we, as the audience, we haven't seen these clips, but they're so it'll be she's dressed up in the attire that she was wearing in the Lux episode, for instance, and she'll be saying something that we, as the audience, did not see, in that original episode, which basically is like, actually, the universe as it is that she does have a child, Poppy is her child, and we, as the audience, are seeing it through the Doctor's eyes. It's like, oh, I guess that is what happened, even though it didn't.
woof.
Which was, yeah, I mean, that was an interesting story beat for me.
Yeah, because this whole time you think that the Doctor's like in his best place.
Yeah,
Like it's mentally, spiritually doing fine, and then turns out, nope, for no reason whatsoever. I was just mentally blocking out this child's existence and how important it was, and this and that. It's like, how many other things is
yeah.
he just?
So I'm not even sure if I necessarily took it that way. I took it more of a case
Yeah,
of
I'm not sure if
I,
that's how you
I,
take it
I,
either.
the way that I took it is that he changed it so that everybody would see it that Poppy was her daughter, and that at the expense or the sacrifice of him not knowing that. So it's basically, I guess you can kind of say like
Honestly,
it's sort of like reverse
I like that
gaslighting.
better. Yep.
Yeah, it's sort of like reverse gaslighting, I guess you could say. So
Yeah.
what we saw throughout the season was the reliable narrator, And then those flashback scenes we saw in the finale were an unreliable narrator, but more an unreliable narration from the perspective of Belinda and basically everybody apart from the Doctor. So that's why it was a bit that's why it's a bit disorienting as a viewer. It's like, this didn't happen. And I think that's how you're supposed to think.
Okay, because I, full disclosure, took it as the Doctor showing signs of cracking, which definitely leads to something I'm going to say post the end of what we're talking about now.
Yeah. But of course, the thing is that but she still remembered the adventures they had and everything, so it's not like her mind was wiped a la Donna Noble. But the fact that he was sort of saying, when she was saying, "Am I going to see you again?" And he said, "You will, but not with this face." I thought, "Oh, okay, no, it's fine. Maybe,
Nope.
She's done as the companion for this season, but maybe she'll appear, a few years' time with a new Doctor or something like that."
Right.
But this is after he put in like a whole bunch of regeneration energy into the engines and everything, and then he was starting to close like, no, he's fine. He'll be around. He needs to be around for another season, surely. And then he's traveling and says, that's what he says. I don't want to do this alone. And the music starts, and the lights in the TARDIS go out, and he and the really, really good score, I must say, for that point. The music that starts playing at that point. And then he goes out and he opens the door. He's in the middle of space. But of course, who else is there but Joy, the star from the Christmas special?
Joy.
Yeah. And he says joy to the world, and that's what this has been, a joy. And he regenerates in a very spectacular way. And the thing is, at first, because I kind of heard rumblings that it might have been, there may be like an open-ended regeneration. So when it zoomed out, I thought it was like, okay, maybe this is how it's going to end. But no, it zoomed back in. It's like, I wonder what they're going to do. Are they going to tease us? And then the regeneration completes. And who else has he become but Billie Piper? And
what?
and the audience. Well, I should say, from what we can tell, I think there's a few girls behind us at similar. Whoa, when that happened.
The noise they made just completely blew everything out of the water. I was just like, what is going on?
Yeah. And of course, just to put things in perspective, Billie Piper she played Rose and Bad Wolf throughout, since the reboot. I think her most recent appearance outside of Big Finish Audios was, I think it was the 50th special, Day of the Doctor.
As the moment.
Day of the Doctor, yeah.
Yeah, as the moment. So the facts...
and here's my thing.
Yeah.
Was that the moment? Or was that this Billie Piper?
We'll see. But that is certainly causing a lot of discourse, because the thing is that there's some people saying, well, in the credits it just says "at introducing Billie Piper," but it doesn't say as the Doctor, so maybe she's
as
not
the Doctor at all. So
maybe she won't be the Doctor or anything like that. But yeah, that was certainly a curveball. I certainly was not expecting that, and I may very well be in the minority, but I am very much interested in seeing how this is going to pan out.
Absolutely, I'm interested in seeing how this pans out. You can't do this to us. And then, okay, so the main reason why I've been freaking out is because it doesn't say the Doctor will return.
Yeah, well, this is kind of where we're getting into a bit of behind-the-scenes stuff. So the thing is, so one thing that I've sort of heard, and I can kind of subscribe to this theory, and it's sort of it's the whole Disney thing, right? So the thing is that from what I can gather, Ncuti likes playing the Doctor and everything, but the problem is that the third season hadn't been given the tick by Disney yet. That's not to say that it's not to say that that's the end of Doctor Who. It's going to go into another wilderness period or anything like that. But it's just a case of, they want, a third season is going to happen, but it's a bit up in the air as to when. And the thing
Yeah.
is that, before Doctor Who, Ncuti was kind of very much a hot commodity. He was sort of, he was in Sex Education, he was in the Barbie movie, and also he's over here in the UK. He's also on the theatre scene, so performing plays and that sort of thing.
Okay.
So I think it's kind of a case of that. It wasn't so much that he was tired of playing the Doctor or anything like that, but I think it was a case of he wasn't sure when the third season would be happening, so he didn't want to put other career opportunities on hold. Just in case, he didn't want to pass down, for instance, like a big movie just on the off chance that he might get a call saying, "Oh, we're going to start shooting another season of Doctor Who in a month. Can you make it?" And he had to say, "Well." So I think that's the theory that I'm subscribing to. That because of it's unknown when season 3 is going to happen. And I think there were also some reshoots done early this year, so I think that might be why.
Okay. Because that actually kind of really upset me and made me feel a lot of really, really upset feelings for a while. Because how it happened for me is I worked a 12-hour day, came home, we picked up a pizza on the way home, and then immediately that was ready to go on the TV. So we hit play, had our dinner, and it was just me and Rachel. The kids were gone this weekend. It was great.
Sure.
And then I had to get up and record to us last week's episode of the podcast immediately afterwards. And Bryce is like, "How's it going?" I'm like, "Dude, my brain just took a shit because all of a sudden I'm thinking about Billie Piper appearing in the 50th episode, like she's the future version of the Doctor that we don't know about, and I don't even know how to process that right now." And he goes, "Okay, cool. I don't know Doctor Who, but I'm sure that's awful." And I'm like, "Yeah, bro."
But yeah, well, the I guess the big thing about that is sport. So of course, so Doctor Who is a BBC production. I know Disney are involved in it now, but in the UK, Doctor Who has always been BBC from day one.
Yeah.
So for context, the episode finished at 8 p.m. and of course, the last shot you see is him regenerating into Billie Piper. Basically, bang on at 8 p.m., BBC News posted an article saying, shocking reveal as Ncuti Gatwa Doctor regenerates into Billie Piper, or something like that.
Yeah.
Doctor Who YouTube channel, I believe, uploaded the regeneration scene at 8 p.m. as well. So, so basically, the corporation that is responsible for making it had no issues or qualms or anything like that. We're just going if you haven't seen it, the second it aired, joke's on you, is what's happened. And I think, Josh, you were saying at the beginning that you got that spoiled, right?
Yeah, well, not that it was Billie Piper, because I, like you, thought it was going to be an open-ended regeneration.
Yeah.
Because all I saw was the BBC was like, "Thanks for everything," and then it was 3 different pictures of him starting to glowing, and then glowing brighter, and I'm like, "Oh my god, why would they do that to me?"
Yeah.
And then I had to go the whole rest of the workday and not say anything to Rachel at all.
Yeah.
Because I knew it would super upset her, and it did.
Yeah.
And I was very shocked as well. It was one of those things I spent all day thinking, what are they doing? And then it didn't immediately say the Doctor will return. And I'm like, oh my god, that was the series finale. I just lived long enough for the series finale of Doctor Who. And
Doctor Who's gonna outlive all of us.
I hope so, because as someone who and I'm sure that you completely understand this, as someone who grew up as having Doctor Who as a constant friend, thinking for even a moment that was the very last episode I would ever see, I sat there and cried even harder than I had. And that was a very emotional 10-15 minutes in our house. And I was oh my god, it's really over. And then of course Bryce is like, "I'm ready to record." I'm like, "Man, fuck you, I need 10 minutes, man."
Yeah. No, I get it. Well, I guess the thing, I guess, just with regards to kind of the future of the show, I think the thing is, at the end of the article, and this is the problem with the problem with being a fan of TV nowadays, particularly being a fan of long running shows, that they're saying, so BBC, who you imagine have an inside view on this, are basically saying that realistically the earliest that we're going to see any new episodes of Doctor Who will be 2027 at the earliest.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I mean,
no Christmas special.
No Christmas special. Yep.
For 2 years.
Correct. The only thing that we have to tide us over is the war between the land and the sea, which is this spin-off show, which is going to be focusing on on UNIT and the Sea Devils. So we'll see how that goes. We'll see how they showed a trailer for that at the end of our screening, at the very least. I don't know.
Oh no, I didn't even know it existed.
Oh,
you should be able to find it on Disney, I think.
Oh,
well, it's not out yet. Or you might be able to find the trailer online.
Yeah, the trailer.
Like
yeah, I'll look it up for sure. Yeah, because I didn't know anything about it even existed. So that's great.
I'll see if I can dig it out. But yeah, so that's something to look forward to. But I've realised that we've probably been talking quite a lot about this. I think we should probably get to wrapping up. So I guess just going around the table.
Yeah.
So an unexpected end to Ncuti's run.
Yeah.
How do you feel about it and him as a whole? So how about we start with you, Dan?
I mean, with it being very unexpected, I would have loved to see more of the 15th Doctor. His run, I mean, I can't really think of any necessarily bad points. Like, it's leagues above Chibnall's writing and everything like that. And I just, it seems way too soon. Like, I get wanting to have space for other projects. I mean, I just saw a trailer that has him in a role in the new Benedict Cumberbatch, Olivia Colman movie. And I also understand it can also be a very physical, mentally tasking role to be the Doctor. Like, you have a fandom that's pretty much, I think, probably one of the biggest in sci-fi, or it's at least very big here in the UK. But yeah, I mean, it's really hard to explain exactly how I feel about just this unexpected end. Just I wish there was more, to be honest.
Yeah.
I think for me, what I would just say, I know this is going to sound really parasocial, but thank you, Ncuti. I think that's what I think I want to say.
I agree.
Even though it was a very short run, he made it his own, and I think the other thing to bear in mind is that so he didn't face any of the big three. So the big three being Daleks, Cybermen, and the Master. But he still very much.
He got the Ronnie.
He got the Ronnie, yeah. But then again, sort of, if people who are familiar with New Who might go, who's the Ronnie?
Right.
Whereas I felt like when I watched The Master for the first time, I didn't feel like when I watched with David Tennant, it was like, oh, this guy seems like a baddie. I didn't feel like it's like, oh, well, actually he's a character from the original run. But yeah, for me, I felt that it seemed like he very much enjoyed the role. He was very flamboyant. He really liked to dress up and everything. I also enjoyed the fact that there were just a couple of times there were just songs for no reason. Like he sang in the Christmas special.
There's always a twisted deal.
Yeah, things like that. And playing Kylie Minogue and stuff on in Rogue and stuff like that. It's just I don't know. He seemed to be. He was a fun Doctor. So I don't know where I would rank him yet. But I think I'd have to put him very near the top.
Yeah, definitely.
Me too.
So for me, very fun Doctor. Even if we didn't get enough of him, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I think that is the opinion that we all share of him, is that we didn't get enough of him. It's kind of we live in a day and age that I can very confidently be like, well, I guess we'll get some Big Finish audios, later down the
That's true.
road, but it's gonna happen. We all know it, but I feel like the reason that I liked him so much as another version of the same character I've seen played by so many people is that he had this warmth just emanating from him. It's not the same tired, I'm to be honest, Doctor Who has reminded me of a single mother for several of basically since
Yeah,
Matt Smith.
sure.
Basically, there's this weight on the shoulders. There's stress. There's in the back of my mind, I don't like doing this, and this is really the first time that we've had the Doctor just be like, "Hell yeah, I'm alive. Let's do this, baby," and it just really felt like a good, refreshing thing. And I know there's a lot of people that have their nitpicks about it, but I feel like this was a great era, even if you will.
Yeah,
It was the Doctor got his groove back.
yeah, very optimistic and enthusiastic
Yeah.
kind of vibe.
Yeah.
So we'll see what I don't know. I hope that the Doctor Who fandom will look on this. Maybe if not necessarily right now, they'll look back on Shooty's run positively.
Yes.
Even if they have criticisms around the overall writing and show direction.
Yep.
I
thought he was great. He was great.
Yeah, definitely be happy to see him again. And if we don't, I'm happy with what we got.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's probably a good point to wrap up this probably feature-length episode. Yeah. So.
Yeah, we had a lot to say, and I said it from both of my hearts. So.
Yeah. So well, of course, thanks for your time, Dan and Josh. Much appreciated.
No problem.
Glad we could talk this much about 18 episodes of a show that's been going for 60 plus years. So thanks everyone for listening. Of course, if you're interested in this or other. All things gaming, pop culture, and entertainment, then please feel free to check out the Next Level, check out a bunch of marks, check out the Domain YouTube channel, and we should have you all covered.
Oh yeah, we got it all.
All right.
Yep.
Okay. Thanks everyone.
Thank you.
Peace.
Bye.